You guys know when we visit a place, we try to avoid the typical tourist destinations. We like to visit the lesser known spots that really connect with the local community. And of course, when you think of Las Vegas, you think of all the hotels and resorts, the casinos, on the strip, the lights, the glamour. Well, what if I told you, right in the heart of downtown Las Vegas, there is almost 200 acres of pristine nature preservation. That place is the Springs Preserve, and we're here today. Let's check it out. I'm here with another anthropologist, Nathan Harper, the staff archaeologist here at the Springs Preserve. Nathan, this place is amazing. I cannot believe how close to downtown Las Vegas we are right now, and yet surrounded completely by, I just feel like I'm in the middle of the desert.
That's one of the special things about this place is we're only 3 miles west of downtown Las Vegas. But the main reason is this was the main location of the big springs, the Las Vegas Springs. 1.5 million gallons of water came out of the ground over a 24-hour period and helped water the town before Hoover Dam, before Lake Mead, before any of that. This was the main source of water for Las Vegas.
Wow, that's incredible. Probably not so much anymore, huh?
Not so much anymore, you know, as sort of our abilities to get water out of Lake Mead and dam the water up there and grew, the groundwater and the well water became less important. This is actually still a working well field. We're part of the Las Vegas Valley Water District. And so we still have working wells here. We'll pull water out during the peak months in the summer, but we'll also put water back into the aquifer. We take some of our allotment of Colorado River water, it goes back into the aquifer.
You're obviously still doing a lot of conservation efforts.
Absolutely.
There is a reason to preserve the springs, whether or not the springs exist.
From the early 1900s,
Yeah.
because of the water, because of the springs, this place has been important and special, not just because of the water for the railroad, which was the main source of Las Vegas becoming a town. This area was always fenced off and always protected. It really was an outgrowth of that protection that led it to becoming part of the Las Vegas Valley Water District. And so the idea was we don't want this to go away because it's special, because it's unique to Las Vegas. We want to protect it in some way. And so in the early 2000s, the idea was, what can we do to protect this place? Do we want to turn it into Disneyland? Do we want it to be all attractions, or do we just want to wall it off and not let anybody in there? So we sort of took the middle path. We take an approach where it's kind of edutainment.
Yeah.
You know, we're trying to teach people. We want them to be engaged and interested as well. And so I think we've done a pretty good job of that in our galleries, in our spaces, educating people about what it's like to live in the Mojave Desert, but also making sure that they're entertained as well. If that's not your cup of tea, you know, we have 110 acres in the back here, which is nature preserve, which has been protected, it's been restored. Even though the springs don't flow, we still have rich animal life here on site. We have wild fox, coyote, migratory birds, roadrunners. You know, we've got a very rich fauna and flora here. You know, we're sort of this island in the middle of Las Vegas. You don't have to go outside of town to be able to get in touch with nature. And that's, I think, one of our most important roles here.
Yeah, awesome, that's great. What are some of the things you do with maybe local schools or just the community in general, outside of just the nature side?
Well, when we first opened this place, that's sort of the way it was pitched, was to say this is kind of Las Vegas' Central Park. And we do pretty large community events. Just in February, had our Black History Month celebration, had the highest attendance we've had. And then we have other events for kids, Dia del Nino. We've reached out to the community and brought the community back to us. You know, it was one of those things where when we first were being built, people were a little skeptical, but really we've become an important piece of the fabric of Las Vegas culture. And you know, when people think about Las Vegas, they think about casinos, they think about shows, they think about gambling, all that stuff.
The lights and
all the fancy glitzy stuff here. But you know, it's a city of nearly 2 million people. So you need these sort of community gathering places, and we've really sort of stepped into a gap there.
Yeah, it's really awesome that you guys have something like this here that can really play a part in the community while at the same time having so much to do with the local nature and environment.
You know, it's important too because Las Vegas has a really transient population. You have people coming through and staying for a few years and then moving on. And so one of the other goals we have here is to help try to tie people to this area. And I think one of the best ways you can do that is through community events, through outreach, but also through letting people understand their history a little bit better.
Tricorders.
Science.
Star Trek.
Bigger burgers.
So one of the things we can do here is we can talk to them about the deep history that we have. You know, everybody thinks Las Vegas only started about 1950 or 1960, right? We have evidence of artifacts going farther back as well. We know we have mammoth, camel, bison, we have dire wolf, we have American lion that have been found in parts of the valley here. Amazing. The spring mound that we're standing on right here, there's about 40 or 50 of these spring mounds in the valley. And anytime anybody's ever excavated into one of them, you find the mammoth, you find the camel. So this is my next big gig out here, is to cut this thing open like a cake and find all the goodies inside.
See what you find. As an anthropologist myself, we've studied, you know, the people kind of in this area a lot. There's theoretically reasons to believe that there were people as far back as 5,000, 10,000 years ago?
Sure. We do have some Clovis points that have been found here in other parts of the valley. We're talking early. 12,000, 10,000 years ago. We have some artifacts that date probably as old as 5,000, 3,000 years, but we don't have anything older than that, perhaps because we haven't looked for it yet. But we also have Native American habitations, ancestral Puebloan pit houses that date to about 600 to 800. Before we found these, the Southwest culture area didn't include Las Vegas. So once we found habitations and houses, we could actually redraw a map to include Las Vegas as part of the wider Southwest cultural region, which is pretty important. I mean, you know, as an anthropologist and archaeologist, anytime you can redraw a map, that's a big deal, right?
Exactly.
We also have historic period settlers here on site. We have some adobes, we have some dugouts, we have our water procurement facilities that date to the 20s, 30s, and 40s on site. So all of that is part of my responsibility too, is helping unify that story and tell that story to people living here in Las Vegas.
It's a big story. I mean, you've got the last half century casino that kind of blew this place up, but before that, the pioneers, the settlers like you were talking about, and then thousands of years before that, there seems like always been a drive, a desire, an urge for this place in people, which a little surprising thinking of it as kind of a desert in the middle of nowhere, but
if you get a chance, I would go check out Boomtown, which is sort of our reconstructed streetscape. We have 4 houses built by the railroad between 1910 and 1911. There used to be 64 of these in downtown Las Vegas, and you know, sort of our history, you know, you tear it down, you implode it, you move it. And so there are only about 6 or 7 of those cottages left, and we moved 4 of them to our property in 2005.
Cool.
And we restored them, finished the restoration of those in 2013, and we built a reconstruction of the original Las Vegas Railroad Depot.
Awesome.
One of the hotels that was down there, the saloon called the Arizona Club was very distinct, had this leaded glass front on it, which we tried to reconstruct, and then the First State Bank, which is a very distinctive sort of neoclassical columns and pediment type building that was built in 1910 in Las Vegas. So
before the casino was here, those places you mentioned, that was Las Vegas. That was
downtown. That was the whole thing. And you can look at downtown right now, and you have the Plaza Hotel, which stands at the end of Fremont Street. That's built exactly the same footprint where the railroad depot is.
Oh, wow.
So it's kind of cool to be able to sort of put all of those puzzle pieces together, where the buildings were, where the houses were, and sort of tell that story of Las Vegas as a railroad town, which is a rare thing.
Cool. That's awesome. What do you see for the preserve going into the future? What are some ways that it can impact the community, continue to impact the community, and maybe play a bigger role in the science world?
Well, obviously the spring mound is a big part of future scientific research here. Also, with our pit houses, our pit house area, actually about a decade ago, we did some ground penetrating radar and some resistivity across the site and identified more pit houses.
Wow.
Which we haven't excavated yet. So, I mean, it's been in the ground for 1,200 years, another 5 years isn't
it's not going anywhere,
right? So we're going to focus on that. We're hoping to collaborate with some of the local universities and higher education facilities here and do some collaborative work and maybe start going in and excavating some of our pit houses and definitely getting in here at the spring mound.
So kind of filling out that story of the story of Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Valley. Well, thank you so much, Nathan. It was amazing to talk to you. Thanks for kind of giving us a quick rundown of this place and everything you guys are doing. I'm super excited to spend some time here, take a look around, and Yeah, I appreciate everything you guys are doing. Thank you
A lot
very much.
to see. Thanks for coming out. Appreciate
Sure
it.
thing.